My name is John, and I am a nobody. My very first job was working for the NHS, which is the National Health Service here in Britain. And I worked there for about a year as a porter on the main block before I got offered a job or applied for a job working at accident and emergency, which our American cousins call EM. Now, my predecessor, who had worked there, couldn't stand the sight of blood, which is probably not a very good career choice to make. So whenever he was in the emergency room and somebody had come in from a car crash, he would pass out. And so they obviously needed somebody else, a dedicated casualty porter, because they were so far from the main block. So I applied for the job and got it. Now, it was a very well paid position because I was getting all kinds of benefits. I was a union member, and I still have my union card, UP, and I'm still kind of proud of this. But it was weird because I got paid for stuff I wasn't doing, so there was one forklift in the building, I think, in the basement. I was paid an extra money because I was apparently a trained forklift driver, though I'd never actually been near a forklift. And I had lots of other benefits which I was being paid. This was my first job, so I was pretty young, I was still a teenager. And working for accident emergency was quite something. I might make a video about working for the NHS as a main casualty porter, at another time. But this whole experience in casualty was something that has stayed with me throughout my life. And I'd like to share a little bit of it with you. Now, some stories are so appalling, I'm not going to mention them. And as usual, I'm not going to mention any names. My job was fetch and carry. I would go to pharmacy with body parts to be analysed. I would, work in this department opposite something called a receptionist, which have now been abolished, I think. You have to log in yourself and do all the work yourself rather than ask a receptionist. But my job was mainly helping unload the ambulances, sometimes helping to take people's clothes off or cut their clothes off in some cases, depending on the season. And so we had people who came in who'd been injured while they were riding motorbikes. And if it was the season for that, then we had a lot of those in. If it was the rugby season or various sports seasons, the ski season, whatever, we had people who needed help because they'd hurt themselves. Lots of weird experiences I had there. We didn't have much knife crime or gun crime like we do now in London, which is confined, sadly, mostly to one particular group of people. We did have knife crime, but it was not where I was, which was in Norwich, in Norfolk, England. There was knife crime going on in Glasgow, in one particular area called the Gorbals, where people were attacking each other with machetes and swords and God knows what. The police finally stamped this out by using a variety of measures, one of which was stop and search. But we didn't have much of that. only occasionally we had victims of firearm or knife abuse, but it was mostly road traffic accidents, RTAs, and the receptionist would just shout out blue light, and we would know that an ambulance was on its way. One particular day, and one particular part of my job was to keep the ambulance bay free, so that ambulances could come in any time of the day or night and deliver their cargoes of injured human beings, damaged human beings. And I would help unload them, or if they were DOA, dead on arrival, I would actually take them round to the mortuary, but that's probably another story. One particular day, a saloon car drove up to the ambulance bay and parked across it, blocking both ambulance bay entries. So I went out of my little cubicle and told the man to move his car immediately, and he didn't say anything to me. He just walked to the back of the car, opened the door, and removed his son. Walking to the front, he just gave me his son, and I took him in my arms, outstretched arms, and I could see that he was dead. I will never forget this. And I said to him, all right, we'll do our best. But he said to me, save him. And those words have just go right through me, save him. So I rushed the boy into the emergency room, and soon the doctors and nurses were busy working on him. They worked on him for half an hour. And in those days, I don't know what it's like now, you could work on somebody for half an hour and try to resuscitate them. But if you were not successful, that was it, because that individual would have sustained such terrible brain damage that they would not really have a life worth living in front of them. But he was dead, and I took him in there. They worked on him, but it was all to no avail. He died. And this is one of thousands of experiences I had, and I take off my hat, literally, to anyone who works for the emergency services, because it's a difficult job, and most of them are going to end up as nobodies in the end, most of the staff, but they do a very important job. Just one phone call can change your whole life, and to call emergency services because you are in desperate need is a wonderful thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's a bit negative, but I hope you enjoyed it, and you take care of yourself and those you love. And I'll see you hopefully in the next one. And until then, take care and all the best. And Tschüssikowski.